Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel Happy Hour. This is the second time we're on with the book bestseller Raised by These Wolves, Volume 2, Child Trafficking Within the Foster Care and Court Systems. I have a couple of the participants who have been in the book, and we're going to talk about it and what we're going to accomplish with the book. And I'm going to start with Ms. Stacey Pynn first. And tell me more, Stacey. Glad to have you
Hi,
on.
Mary. Can
Hi.
you see me? Can you see me?
Yep.
Okay, good, because someone's trying to call my phone. So anyways, yeah, thank you for publishing me in your book. It's such an honor. And the timing is super awesome because since the publication of your book, I filed a RICO lawsuit in the New York State Western District Federal Court. And it's basically, I tell people the lawsuit is against the New York State court system and Child Protective Services for sex trafficking children under the guise of justice and protection, which is literally, synonymous with the title of your book. So the timing was perfect. And my ex-husband is an attorney, and he was an attorney for Child Protective Services. And when my children disclosed abuse, this is what led me to learn that this is a systemic problem, not just locally where I live, but throughout the United States. And then it led me to learn that the United States is actually the #1 country in all of the world for child sex trafficking. So your book really, the timing was perfect, the issue is perfect, and your book has helped me a lot with coming out with my story and putting pressure on the powers that be with my lawsuit. And even today, I just filed an Article 78 in New York State to enforce New York State Public Officers Law, Section 30, to remove 5 or 6 police officers, New York State troopers, from their position for a criminal conspiracy to cover up one of their co-workers from a drunk driving incident where he hit a disabled person. And that is pertinent to my situation because 2 of the cops in this lawsuit, defendants in my RICO claim, for doing similar things. And even more interesting, or not surprising, is that one of the 6 police officers already resigned from his position from another case of a cover-up shielding a co-worker from internal discipline. So here you can see, if they're going to criminally cover up a drunk driving incident where a cop hit a disabled person, then you can take it to the next level where they're covering up cronies who their children are disclosing sex abuse, which was my case. So your book really brought all this to light. At the same time, all these things are taking place. And I can't thank you enough. It's been very helpful, to get the story out there and let people know what's really happening.
Yes. I mean, it's out there, and we're here, we're going to educate people on this book and educate people on our stories and what happened to all of us. So I'm so glad you were able to make this podcast. And, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
I'm just so sorry you and your kids had to go through this. And I think everyone who's listening in, please read the book, read Stacey, her story, and then these other parents that are here. We're all here uniting together to tell everyone and explain what's going on, because there's a common thread here that all these judges and attorneys are playing in the same sandbox, and all of this has got to stop because of destroying our children.
Since filing my RICO lawsuit again that exposes the sex trafficking of children under the guise of justice and protection, I get people asking me, well, do you know anyone else this happened to? And then it's like, well, there's this whole book.
Right. It's all in
on
there.
The issue.
Yeah. So I thank you for, speaking about the book and educating everybody.
Well, it wouldn't be possible without you, Miss Marianne.
Oh, well, thank you. I totally thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, I hope you have a good day because I know you're on your way to work.
Yes, and I'm bringing my friends with me.
Oh, look at that.
Oh,
That's Zeus and that's
my-
Coda.
Oh, how cute
Yeah,
they are.
they come with me to work.
that's
That's cute.
awesome.
Aw,
Yeah.
Well-
Well, thank you so much, Marianne, and thank you to everyone that also contributed to your book and who, are there and heard, because it does take a lot of courage, so and the more people that speak up, then the more that will feel comfortable in doing so as well. So it's not even just people themselves that are helping, they're helping everybody else.
yes.
Yeah. And
Very
thank you,
true.
Stacey, for everything you do and exposing, all these corrupt officials as well with your amazing work that you do and your podcast as well, or your interviews. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
After today, I'm expecting a lot of retaliation and fury. So I am not suicidal. I've never tried it in my life, never been hospitalized in a mental institution. Yeah.
We're right
I'll
behind
be
you.
praying. I'll be praying. I pray over this whole podcast with everybody that's in it. So
Absolutely.
Yes.
be careful.
Thanks, ladies
Stacey.
and gentlemen. Yep. Thank you. I'm
Take
going to
care.
listen to you, but I'm going to turn myself off. Okay.
Okay.
He will.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Stacey. Well, hey, how about you, Kathy? You are from Florida and you
Yeah.
are in the book. And
Yeah.
trying to find your chapter. Oh gee, I think I just passed it. But I met you through a podcast, and then I decided to have your story in the book. How are you doing with your story?
Well, great. I'm glad to be next door neighbors with Tracy as well in chapters 13 and 14.
There we
I was
go.
excited about that. But yeah, I've yet to really I've been giving the book to friends and so forth, but I have a couple of upcoming court dates, so I expect that may be brought up. My former husband is also an attorney within this same court system, and so I think that's how some of that we've got to this place, because he can file his own motions, do his own research. He has his connections and things like that within this courthouse. So it's been a very
That's disgusting.
difficult legal battle. Yeah, he's really used his own connections to try not for the benefit of our children, but for his own benefit. And so I chose to just focus in this chapter about a corrupt judge that we had for, I guess it was about 2.5 years.
Oh.
Her name in the book, I nicknamed her Judge Bias, which
Yeah.
is very close to her real name. And part of what I want to echo with what Stacey said is for people to not be scared to speak up. These are public officials that are here to follow ethical canons, judicial canons, and they're here to enforce the law and the statutes, not to create their own opinions and act on that. And so for 2.5 years, that's exactly what happened with this particular judge. Nothing, the standing orders weren't followed one bit. I spent so much money on attorney's fees, so much time missed from work, so much emotional energy, and my children were both very at risk during this whole time that she was on the bench. So my story is, I wanted to bring that up because it's the same flavor of all the tragedy that we have in common, but in particular, I got public records for her and found her handwritten note. And that's one thing that I do want people to know about is public records. It's the only thing that's free that we're going to do in this whole process. I mean, yes, you do pay for copies and so forth, but it's the cheapest thing. Let me say that
Mhm.
we're going to do. And you never know what you'll find with police records, with DCF, with the actual judicial communications. You can find ex parte communications and so forth. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I really wish I would have paid more attention in government classes because, now we have a big internship in that, but that's our right to access those materials. And I really want to encourage people to do that. And like Stacey said, I was going to echo her, there'll be wrath. There'll be retaliation. I've been threatened, with the defamation lawsuits, and I think the statement was, just wait because everybody's going to sue you. So I'm not sure if that included the corrupt judge as well, but everybody was going to sue me. But what's great about that is I can bring to court all the information that makes everything true that I've said. So
Mhm.
just because it's unfavorable or unwanted, or no one wants that to be exposed, it's also true. And my case is really getting towards the end. My youngest is 17. I mean, I don't think that it'll just automatically be over in a year, but I'm not going to sit silently once my time is finished, because this really needs to change. And it's damaging the fabric of our whole community. Parents are going to work, working on like briefs and motions, not focusing on work. Children are just having to choose between parents, and the retaliation that goes along with that. So it's, the only ones really benefiting are these attorneys who charge you exactly what your last penny is in your bank account. That's how much it costs. So I'm here to be vocal about it, and I really appreciate the courage and support that I've gotten from others here that are in your book, and for you, Marianne, for blazing the trail and persevering and not stopping in that same way. That it's just not okay. I think we're on the precipice of change, or that's my
Mhm.
sense of it all, that we need to keep speaking up.
Yes, I agree.
So thank you.
And thank you. I'm just so glad you're in my book, and we're going to educate people on what's going on everywhere, because this is everywhere. This is global.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That is true.
And one thing that I like to think about is, we are so overwhelmed in our own journey, but if you can take 20 minutes, a half hour, an hour to reach a handout to someone, to either listen or give an idea or encouragement for them, that makes such a difference, because you feel very alone in this journey. I mean, who knows if our neighbors go through this? I'm not sure if any of mine are to this level, but to feel alone with something that's really tragic and difficult is the worst for me. And so walking side by side, the Facebook groups, the podcast, this book is all going to make a difference and bring awareness for people. So
Right.
I hope that I can use it to show in court, and I hope that I can use it to show politicians. That would be
There you
awesome.
go. There you go. Because before you popped on, I was just telling everybody that I had dropped off a return to the tile store, and I was talking about somehow me and this sales girl were talking about the Amish, and she says they treat their horses really bad, and I said, well, you should see how they treat their children. And then I gave her my business card, and I told her this book had come out, and I said, you can read more about how they treat their children. And so she said she'd look it up. So educate people. And she did thank me for educating her. So I thought, wow, at least it's doing something here. It's percolating.
Yeah, exactly. Bit by bit. And people can't believe it if they haven't been through it. They just think there's no way, or it must be two people, that are bad actors. And no, it really only takes one, and then it takes a system to, light the match and throw that on the gasoline. So
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
So
So
I
thank
told
you for having me in your book.
I'm so glad. I'm honored to have you all in the book, and I'm gonna talk to Elaine Hickman because she's been on my podcast a couple times as well, and her story is very important as all of ours are. So I welcome you, Elaine.
Oh, thank you, Marianne, for having me. Really happy to contribute to your book. Volume, and actually, I was in volume 1 too.
Yes, yeah,
Right,
you
and did my own book as well prior. Um,
excellent.
yeah, it's really important. Okay, so we all have our unique circumstances, but we all have that same common thread. We have been duped, violated, abused by the court system in one way or another. And I think the common thread it really comes down to is where this system can make money off of us. Some people don't have a child custody issue, so they find another way to make the money. But they just really go to town on people with their children.
Mhm.
They dragged me through 10 years of custody litigation when my ex-husband, he didn't want visitation. He left the country. He didn't even live here, but they wanted to make all that money. And aside from the custody visitation and all that sort of stuff, um, the other important piece in my case had to do with the child support. And I wrote about it in this volume too, but I didn't include a real important issue because I simply haven't gotten enough advanced movement in it. But I think people should know that the child support computer system, besides it being federal law, there's a government contractor involved with that. So this puts it on a whole different level. I don't know if that contractor manages the whole country or certain regions, but certainly in Pennsylvania and some of the surrounding states, I know that Maximus, they manage this or collect the data for the child support. And this is a major issue because our kids they're like accounts, just like a credit card. You have all these accounts. People have an account with, you know, our children are accounts, and they will use our kids in any way, shape, or form so they can make money. And the government gives those matching funds for child support. So, the more money everyone, the contractor, the county, and the state, they all collude together, the more they make, it's at our children's expense, which is a big reason why they don't like to let you move your child support into another area, because that's an account they have. They're making money off of that.
Mhm.
But I'd like to say that I will be bringing your book, the newest book here, as well as the others. I'm supposed to go to Washington, D.C. Early next week for this like whistleblower. They have every year the whistleblower summit. So, there'll be different legislators there and people like that. And because I feel that I have a whistleblower regarding the child support, besides another issue, I think the book will be very relevant. So I'll bring that to there as well. And, you know, I don't know. At this point, my children are all over the age of 18. They dragged me through. I think it's 20 years of court. 20 years they took my life and my children's lives, tortured us to death. And at the end of it, when I actually had enough evidence to prove official and bureaucratic corruption, that there was no way that anyone could defend, they ordered away my constitutional right to file in court. My divorce order has never been enforced. I'm barred from even trying to enforce. So I was basically ordered to be a victim of embezzlement. They took everything I had, and I'm an older person at this point. I'm going to go on Medicare next month. That's how long this is. And my children didn't even get their support that they should have received. Effectively, they stopped the child support for my kids at age 10 and 13. They were funneling checks through for a few more years, but then they asked for all the money back. So they are really abusing things. So my children, they never physically took my children from me. They did take the legal custody for a limited period of time. They just couldn't, they couldn't continue with that. They had to return my legal custody after about, was it 16 months or something? But they would not leave it alone. So, they have they have a Bible of tricks to use. If they can't catch you one way, they'll get you. So, many people, their children are being taken through CPS, all sorts of, ways they use. Besides, years ago, they used to just flip the custody from one parent to the other. Now they're just bypassing that and bringing in CPS. But if they can't get you that way and make money off and traffic your children that way, they find other ways. They will find a way through the child support computer system, which most people think you're just dealing with domestic relations in the court. It's far more than that. The governor of your state is in charge of the contract, the Title 4D contract, and then they have these government contractors who come in and they're like managing and overseeing, and it's all about the money. And it's just amazing that our government is happy to dole the money out when they know what's going on. It's a sham. It really is. And the whole thing, that is why I called my book Courtgate, the court's divorced from the law. They won't follow the law. Okay, this is what was it Kathy? No, hold on. Was it not Kathy? The other Tracy. I'm sorry, the other one. She was saying, she was saying, and this is the truth. They will not follow the law, no matter what law you put in place. If the judges, the lawyers, the system, they're not going to follow the law, it's useless. So really, that's my story. And I did also refile another Judicial Conduct Board complaint just this week, because the judge who ordered away my rights, she was not even the assigned judge. She has no authority, no jurisdiction. And that judge is now being looked at by somebody, a prominent attorney who filed a complaint. So let's see how that plays out at this point. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you really for inviting me. I will do my best to, bring your book to the attention of many others.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. And Elaine, I mean, you know a lot about the law as well. I mean, none of us are attorneys, but you know a lot. I'm just so glad to include you in a follow-up in this book, because you were in the first Raised by These Wolves. Now you're in volume 2. So glad to have you on.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk to Tracy.
Yes. Thank you for having me in your book.
I'm so glad you called me up and woke me up out of my nap, and that way we're not late.
Yeah, no. So basically, what I was focusing on is basically this thing started off with domestic violence. And I think the more research you hear about this, and I think Alisha Clark just did something, posted something on Facebook, you don't realize it. And I think the common denominator, which a lot of us have, and I've mentioned before, Stacey, Pynn, Kathy Watrel, me, there's a couple, quite a few mothers in Florida that are married to attorneys and have it so much more difficult, as these our ex-spouses have ex parte and a huge advantage of the legal system and the bias that is before the judges and everyone else. So mine started off with domestic violence, and you don't realize it. This happened in 2014. I had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old at that time. There was pretty much nothing left of my apartment. So you're dealing with trauma, and then you're dealing with some deviant sociopath attorney that is now all of a sudden he's like, I want a divorce after he's destroyed all of our lives, has over $20,000 of damage. And then you're kind of coming out of, you're having all these this paperwork of, I want a divorce, I want full custody. How can you want full custody if there's an order of protection and you just nearly killed me in front of our children? So there's things that you can't wrap around your head as a victim of domestic violence. And then you see the opportunists and these leeches of attorneys. There's not enough district attorneys to represent you at that time, or especially for domestic violence. And then you have to then incur the cost of over $20,000 to hire an attorney to represent you for something you have no idea what's transpiring before you. You have no idea of the legal jargon, the paperwork, the filings, what's before you. And these leeches of attorneys, whether they're your own or someone else's, the first thing they ask you, I want to see your financials. That's exactly what they do, because they want to see how much blood they can suck out of you financially. And I'm just saying it the way it is. I'm not going to pussyfoot around the way they are. That's what they are. And so you find yourself in debt. You find yourself signing things that you have no clue, that you can't comprehend, because you have to view your abuser right in front of you, and there's no comprehension that you can mentally go in that frame of mind of seeing of what you're comprehending and what you're signing. You're going by what your attorney is saying. You know what? Just sign it. I'll explain it to you later. I have a court appearance in 2 minutes. So you're signing a phone book, a plethora of something you requested months in advance of please let me know what my final divorce decree of what I'm signing, and so I can go over it. No, these attorneys are just as much to blame and are part of a huge problem of the family court system, especially. So I focused on that and kind of making people aware of how they take the judges, your attorney, the attorney for children, pry on your vulnerability and your post-traumatic trauma of what you're not comprehending, and just have you sign things away. And by the time, like Alisha Clark has made me aware of, the statute of limitations is over. There is no recourse for these judges, your attorney, their CPS, attorney for children. There's no accountability for these despicable people. You can have laws in place, which I've mentioned to Robert Garza. You can have all the laws placed and successfully brought up to Congress and everything else, but who's going to oversee them? Who's going to oversee that these judges, these attorney for children, are doing the right thing? I think family court needs to be abolished. I think there needs to be jurors, as we've all mentioned before. Once you get in that the court system and the courtroom, and especially these judges don't want courts and cameras. You're not allowed to videotape. You have to go on some bogus transcript that you have to 50-50 if it's 100% accurate. Mm-hmm. So this is what's going on with my Robert.
There he is.
And I was mentioning how you heard. I don't know how much you heard. I just mentioned your name. You can have law in place of these statutes, but there's no oversight of these attorneys that are upholding that these laws that you placed. Who's going to oversee them? So that's the problem. There's no oversight.
So that's the thing with my law, is it takes the decision making, it actually takes the discretion away from the judges and lawyers, the way it's worded, and it shall give that time back. So if they return the child, they're returning the time. Judges and lawyers don't have any more discretion at that point, but they have to point to the law and say, here's what has to be done. Here's what shall be done. And when I was talking to these attorneys, it's very interesting. It's very overwhelming when you're talking to all these people, and I didn't go to law school, but the attorneys themselves were telling me, they're like, I just came out of law. Like I had this one, he's like, I just came out of law school. He goes, I have everything. I'm smart. I've studied. I went in there. I represented somebody, and the opposing counsel kicked my ass. And I was like, well, how? And he goes, well, they played dirty. He goes, they didn't teach us that in law school.
Mm.
He goes, they literally controlled the courtroom like I have never seen, with things that we never even studied or practiced. And he goes, and I thought about it at that point. I'm like, you know what? That's the problem here, is that if one lawyer that has came out of law school and tried to follow all the rules, had everything lined up, his briefs, everything, and this lawyer pulls a bunch of stuff on it, I was like, it's almost like a virus. Everyone that touches another one is like, okay, I got beat on this, so I'm going to use those tricks to win mine. And then that just keeps happening and happening and happening. And these judges that get away, they let the lawyers get away with it. And it's not even law that they're teaching now. Now they have each other teaching each other's tricks that have worked. And this is the issue that I have found, that is what's happening with family courts. And the lawyer said, I want to follow the law, but if I follow the law, I can't win. And you have a lawyer telling me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this was a problem until I was talking to him.
Yeah.
And he goes, you know what? He goes, it would be one thing if you just told me what rules we're going by. What game are we going to play today? Are we playing checkers or are we playing chess? Because you can't mix Uno in with, dominoes and this is what the family court is doing.
Correct.
When you have the professionals that are playing the game arguing about the rules, that's an issue. And this is why these family codes need to be amended to where, like the 3 strikes policy, where you just take anything out of their discretion, because if the district attorney's office is not prosecuting for interference with child custody and it's a state jail felony, then take it out of their hands, put it back into the police that have gone out there, give them the authority and the only tool that will help with interference with child custody, and let them write a $500 ticket. They want to interfere again, another one. But the third time it becomes a state jail felony, what it is now. And now the district attorney's office knows that you've already gave them 2 chances. So now it's their time to step in.
Mm-hmm.
That,
True.
because right now, every district attorney that I went and talked to says, I don't want to put a parent in jail for hijacking someone's time for 2 days. I get it, but they're like, we're not going to do it. It takes too much manpower to, grand juries and this, and we have criminals out here. I'm like, that is a criminal. It's a state jail felony. They're a felon. They're committing a felony, and you're saying that it's not worth it for you. I was like, that's a problem. That's what caused me to come out with this 3 strikes policy.
True. Do you think, sorry to interrupt you, but don't you think, I was reading over your 3 strike, but I think there's too many chances. And by the time they get through strike 1, that could be a year. Strike 2, another 2 years.
Well, let me tell you
that it's purposely prolonged by the abuser.
Correct. And well, it's not purposely, it's just how slow that the court works. And so I can tell you, because it is a civil matter, but it is a criminal matter when you do it through the police department. Now, what happens is the police take the report and then they turn it over the an investigator that's in the youth division, because it has to do with children. And then that takes a couple of weeks. Then they find probable cause, then they turn it over to the DA and they're backed up. And so that takes a couple of more months. Then the DA puts it and schedules it in. But then I didn't know this, but now I know, because I've looked through all this stuff. The grand jury actually takes breaks in different sessions. And so there's a big gap of like a month in some of these things. So literally by the time you report something to the time that it gets to a grand jury, and even if they're indicted, that doesn't mean that they committed the crime. That just means that there's probable cause by a grand jury to indict them. They get arrested for sure. But by the time that you get justice, because their lawyer's going to keep stringing that time out. Like if you look at someone with a DWI or whatever, they don't go to jail right away. They play this game for a year or 2 years. So you're not going to get any justice that way either. But this $500 fine will get you justice right then. It saves resources from the county, the state, everyone. And that will rewrite all of this stuff from happening. In fact, it'll stop the parental alienation from happening because you won't have a big gap in time. And the whole time, if your ex wants to play that game for 6 months to a year until they get reprimanded, this is an immediate consequence of their actions, and it will get you your time with your child.
Got it.
What's more important?
Mhm.
True. But my question, I don't know if I've asked you before, Robert. So you get your time back, but the problem is we all have is that, I had forced my children to go to their abuser. That happens to be an attorney, a violent person. So now there's an order of protection in place for my children. But the thing is that you get your time back, which is, I think it's phenomenal what you're doing. But now what if they have the other parent says, what, this is my assigned vacation weekend, or this is my assigned weekend with the kids. That completely disrupts the dynamics of unbrainwashing your child. Do you get exclusively uninterrupted time back, or do you have to the parenting plan?
Yeah. So let's just say he made a false allegation against you, and you have every first, third, and fifth weekend. So if CPS took 30 days to investigate it, and then it took another 30 days to get into court, that's only first, third, and fifth the first month, and first, third, and fifth the second month. So when you get the children back, then that means you have every first, second, third, fourth, fifth, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, until all those weekends and those Thursdays or Wednesdays are back into your own account. Does that make sense?
And
he still gets them Monday, Tuesdays, whatever, but it's not interrupted because he didn't interrupt your Monday, Tuesdays. Whatever days he interrupted of yours, that's what's going to get interrupted of his. So if it was your weekend that he interrupted, then he's going to miss his weekend. So you get uninterrupted weekends, but you don't get 30 days, 60 days.
I think
because that's not what he took from you.
Well, some of us have had years taken away from us. So, and we see it in, say, Kathy Watrel's case, and she's on here right now. Our children are pretty much the same age, but you see that brainwashing of everything, and I'm sure we've all experienced it. They go to they go to the other parent, and it's complete, no, you don't have to listen. There are no rules, but yet they come back to your house. It's reprogramming your child. So I think it's a hazard in a sense that saying, you know what, I understand, but if I've had 3 years taken away from me, not being able to see my child, then I should have 3 years uninterrupted, no brainwashing. That is what it is. I had to endure it with my children. Now it's time to kind of return that page and reprogram them, because that interference you're always going to have with that time back. They're going to go be reprogrammed and learn bad habits, or to go against the other parent for that parental alienation. So in that sense, I think it's not going to work.
Okay. And so what happens when you return the child after your 3 years are up, if you did it your way, and you still have 8 years left with that other parent? So now you've just hijacked the kid for 3 years, and now you're going to all of a sudden think it's okay to give that child back to them when they've never been around them for 3 years?
Well, I mean, Robert, it's a double. It can't be a double standard, So.
Well, it's not a double standard because he didn't take 3 years from you. He took 3 years of first, third, and fifths.
Well, I'm not following.
Well, you didn't have full custody. So if he took 3 years from you, he took 3 years of first, third, and fifth weekends, holidays, Christmases.
So you're saying it should be a year and a half.
Well, I'm saying my bill gives you those same weekends back. So he's not going to have a weekend for the next 3 years, basically. If that's what if he took 3 solid, 2020, 21, 22 away, then you're going to have uninterrupted weekends. So you're going to have first, second, third, fourth, fifths. And for the next 3 years, you're going to have 3 Christmases in a row. You're going to have 3 spring breaks in a row. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but a lot of us, you know, in general, a lot of us have had 3 years taken every single day, 365 days for 3 years. So
I agree with you. In fact, I wish the bill could have been stronger, but it never would have got the relief that a lot of parents are getting right now. And I could have retroed it and I would have gotten those 3 years back. I agree with
yeah,
you. I've missed out on about 3 years with my kids. So I would have got she never would have had another weekend from now until they graduate. But you know what? I didn't do that because I also wanted to clean up the court system, to clean up CPS, where they can investigate people really making real allegations versus false, and get these parents out of court and get these children back the time with the people that they're trying to steal it from. So I agree with you. I think there should be repercussions. They should be in jail. I tried to put a bunch of teeth in this and I thought about it, and this was the only solution. Now, if somebody else wants to pick up the torch and put another amendment in there, you can. Absolutely. And I'll give you my blessing for it.
yeah, I know.
But as it sits, I needed to stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
Well done.
And I didn't, and I gave up my own time with my kids just to do it. Because I wanted the court system to see that it wasn't about me or my kids. The harm that they did was already done, but I didn't want them to harm any more people or children.
True. And I think you said, when I spoke to you a while back, I think you said you attempted to do this bill in New York, correct?
Well, they just passed. Actually, yesterday I had the person from New Hampshire tell me that they put pieces of my bill in New Hampshire. This is the problem I have with people taking parts of the bill. The bill as it's written is very clean. And if you submit it to any legislator, there is no way that they're going to say no. In Texas, it passed bipartisan and unanimous. The way it's worded, nobody's going to raise their hand and say, well, when you give the child back, I don't think they should have that time back with their parent. No legislator is going to do that. But when you start putting in other things like they did and say, well, and the alienator or the parent that made the false allegation should go to jail and A, B, C, D, E, they never get the bill passed because they tried to do too many things and the legislators are like, no.
Yeah. Interesting.
So they got nothing accomplished.
Yeah.
I'm so
Got it.
grateful to you, Robert. I'm so glad you are in my book and everything you've done to help parents.
Thank you. I was one of you all. I was very frustrated. I was everything that you're feeling right now. Hopeless, everything else. But you know what? I turned my pain into purpose, like I know y'all can. And you can get through this. You can change the rules. You can change the laws. You can make sure if they're playing chess, they're playing chess and not a combination of checkers and chess. But you have to, when you're trying to change the law or anything else, don't make it to where you want to be very specific. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to take everybody's stuff.
No, that's fine because I have Natalia Dalton on. She wasn't able to talk last week, but she's saying that she's also in my book as well with her story. She has an ex who's running the courtroom like a circus, and she's saying that this bill won't work in Virginia. Natalia, tell him why. I can't hear you.
Nope.
Okay.
Hear you now. I've actually talked to Robert before for a minute. You remember me? I was with Thomas Ward in our group.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. He actually told me to tell you hi.
Okay. Hi.
The phone with him. So we have a group here in Virginia. Yeah, the problem with the Virginia is we cannot elect our judges, and it's very political here, and there is just parents that try to protect their kids, they're actually losing custody of their kids. I went to jail for 5 days for protecting my son. And CPS, they go on the stand and they lie. So we have no faith in Fairfax County with CPS. We're trying to get reform. Yeah, there's a lot of child trafficking. There's a lot of child trafficking here in Virginia. There's just too much I don't even know if you even came to Virginia. Or did you come to DC? I thought Tom said you came over in this area. Did you?
Yeah, I went to 43 states and talked to all y'all's legislators and a bunch of different states.
Wow.
And so they understand it, but they don't know how to fix it. And that's the problem that I'm seeing in all your states, is that when you go to someone and you don't have a solution for that problem, there's no reason to go talk to your senators or your legislators, because they're not going to fix it. They don't understand what you're going through until they've gone through it themselves. So don't go to them.
Now what we're trying to do is go to the governor, Youngkin, and we're going to see if he can get the AG to do an investigation, because it's so bad here in Virginia. It's really bad. Yeah, we're like losing hope here in this state. We tried to get a 50-50 bill passed up here. We tried to get a protective parent where, judges be retrained on abuse, which I think in a lot of these cases, these judges do know about abuse. They're just purposely leaving their pre-deciding cases, and they're leaving the children with the abuser on purpose. We're seeing a lot of that in these cases. Just last year in the General Assembly, we went and they didn't pass the bill because they didn't feel the judges needed to be trained. They didn't want to pass a 50-50 shared parenting because they didn't really have a reason. They just linger these things on, and I think they just like the way the system is run here. And I think it's a profit that they're making. Let's just leave the children with the parent that's more difficult, because it brings more cases into court. I don't know. It's just, I've been alienated from my son 3 years. There's a lot of parents, even more than 3 years here. It's bad. I mean,
well, your judge is bad. Your judge, Kemmler, I got you your number 6 in the book.
My judge, she's the chief judge of Alexandria, and she's like put 3 or 4 moms on supervised visitation for reporting abuse. And they don't ever look at the evidence. They deny the evidence. They don't want to look. They don't want to speak to the child. I mean, it's bad.
I understand. And until there's better training, in my case, everybody thought they were doing the right thing. So my ex did it by proxy. She went to a mandatory reporter. The mandatory reporter thought they were doing the right thing. CPS thought they were doing the right thing when they got the call. The judge, when my ex filed the protective order, restraining order, thought she was doing the right thing, but nobody communicated or put what was happening together until it was too late at the end, because then, but I'm not making an excuse for your judge, because there's some very corrupt judges. In fact, Texas is leading with Texans for Judicial Accountability. We're putting cameras in the courtroom. We're holding judges responsible. We're taking their immunity away. Well, not all of it, but most of it. And that will clean up a lot of the stuff that all of you are going through.
My judge in her court, she decided everybody has to lock up their phones. You can't bring a camera or anything into the courtroom or video. So, I mean, she knows that there's some issues going on in that courtroom, and she's trying to hide everything.
So we talked to some Supreme Court justices here in Texas. So once you turn, something happens screwy in family court, it goes to the appellate court, and then it goes to Supreme Court. We've talked to the Supreme Court justices here, and they said that they would love cameras in the courtroom because it levels the playing field. Because, if someone's going to say that a judge is doing this, this, and this, then you have video of it. Let's rewind the video and see if the judge did it. If the judge says the litigant's doing this, this, and this, then let's rewind the tape and let's see it. So it protects both. And it's, I think, Mississippi starts with an M. Mississippi, maybe Montana. One of those states have, actually, let me look, because I don't want to give you false information. I'll look it up here in a minute. But one of the states have where you go to family court, they give you a DVD when you walk out. The bailiff burns it. Here you go. Here's your copy of it. I'm about to try to go over there next week, whatever state that is in, and go do a live from there and figure out their legislation and the piece that they did to get this accomplished. And I'm going to try to bring it to Texas and every other state. But once I get that piece, that code, that is all you need, and you can implement it in any state. And if you see that it's working for them, that it protects the judges and it protects the litigants, it cleans up the court system.
Well, then another thing that I notice in a lot of these cases, because I do a lot of court watches, is that you'll see the two attorneys go in the back room before the judge comes out, and then they all come back out. It's like the case is pre-decided. They already know who the winning person is going to be. So we're just going through the trial, but it's already been decided who they're going to pick.
Yeah,
or they're going to make an insane ruling, because I don't know about other states. I wish that I knew the other states' laws. Here in Virginia, a judge can not follow the best interest of the child and make her opinion as a so basically they train the judges to be biased. So if you're allowed to make opinions, which should not be, they should follow the law and stick to the law when it comes to children's safety, not be giving opinions and deciding on one parent is better than another. Who are they? They're not psychologists. But another thing they do is they pick psychologists who work for the court, and they assign them to one parent for a psychological evaluation. Like in my case, all the moms had to have a psychological evaluation. Oh no, the fathers are fine. It's all the moms. I'm giving you an example. I mean, it goes to both sides, but in my particular judge, I think she has something against moms for some reason. Mm-hmm. And then these judges, they take their own personal life or whatever they're going through and their own experiences, and they take it out on, on the people.
Okay. So Natalia, how would you fix it if you could write a law today? How would you fix it?
So my law would be, and this is what I've told my group, that we need to have a law that judges are not allowed to make opinions, that they need to stick to the law, like the Virginia Code or whatever the law is, and not guide away from those, especially when it comes to child abuse, endangering children, or anything with custody. They should not be allowed to make opinions. As long as they're allowed to make opinions, that's where everything gets messed up.
But their opinion is their ruling.
Yeah, but they're not sticking to the law. They're just like that. My judge.
So judges need to follow the laws as they're written.
I'll disagree with both you guys, because I think we already have laws on the books. We have the law. If you suspect there's child abuse, you should be able to go to the sheriff, the police department, or a magistrate and file a report of child abuse. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, in my county, Watauga County, there's a Sheriff Len Hageman who got together with the Department of Child Services and the county attorney. So he did not write a letter against Hal Hageman, Judge Hal Hageman on my case, did not write a report about Judge Rebecca Eggers on my case for child abuse. Now, I have a website called Child Abusive Judges. We have 900 judges accused of child abuse. Not one person can go into any sheriff's department, magistrate, or child protective services and write a report for psychological child abuse. And they have no process, unlike if you have a battered child or sexually abused child, there are processes in place. These people refuse to write reports and refuse to do an investigation. What do you do in that case? What do you do in that case when you have 1, 2, 4 people going in there and they refuse to report on child abuse? So there's more and more and more people getting abused by the same people.
So that's psychological child abuse, right?
Yes.
Okay. So they have in their manuals, is there something about psychological abuse in their penal codes or anything? Because they have, they have all kinds of stuff. But is there anything about psychological abuse in there?
Yes. Severe psychological abuse should be as bad as physical abuse and should be taken, and it's a felony.
I agree with you. But is there anything right now that says psychological abuse, physical abuse is abuse in their penal codes? Because if there's not, then that's what you need to change your rules in your state to say physical abuse or psychological abuse. You have to add that in there for them to be able to do something. So if you don't know if it's in there or not, and if it's not in there once you look, then you need to write it in. It's kind of like this 3 strikes you're out rule that I'm coming up with. I didn't realize
Statute 14-318.4 child abuse is a felony, and severe psychological child abuse that damages a kid emotionally is child abuse. They refuse to write reports. It's already on the laws, and they don't do it.
Okay. The reason that they have that in there, if you want them to arrest for psychological abuse, if it were me and I read the code that way, that meant I would have to take that child to a therapist and have the therapist deem, because if it's saying psychological, then you need a psychologist or a therapist to deem that, and they're mandatory reporters. And I get what you're saying, but those are the rules. You have to play by them, whether they say it or not. But
I'll disagree with you. I didn't have any access to my daughters. How am I going to take them to a psychologist?
Yep.
How about when our judge or when our attorney asked the judge, hey, this guy believes that his children are being psychologically abused, they need to see a special therapist. And he goes, I don't believe that. I will not order it.
yeah, I don't believe in, I get it. So how would you fix the system? What law are you going to make, or what law would you make right now to fix your problem?
There is no law. The law's already on the books. I'm not putting any more laws on the books. When you when you believe that your child is being abused or you suspect it, then you should be able to go to any DHHS or any sheriff's department or any police department and make that report.
I agree
Not
with you.
making that report, what do you do? Now, if there's no law on the books that's not already there. And
Well, I
so,
think
that's why there is, because you can actually put in there an amendment that says when a therapist says that it's psychological abuse, when a psychologist
but I had no access to my kids.
Right,
so how do
I
you do that when
understand.
you have no access to your kids? And the therapist that was working with your children got 3 ethics violations and was mandated to stop talking to your daughters because she was psychologically abusing your kids. And that was the therapist that I didn't pick. That was picked by my ex. So what do you do in that situation? Now you realize that your children are being massively distorted and abused this whole time.
Let me ask you something real quick.
Sure.
How did this start? Did it start with a false allegation, a temporary order? What did it start with?
The judge basically didn't give me any time with my kids. He wanted to see a psychological. And then I got a site.
The only way that someone's going to do that is if there's a bunch of stuff being thrown around. So did it start with a false allegation?
A false allegation of me being bipolar. No abuse at all.
Okay.
So I got a psychological. Everything was fine. He refused to.
Did she keep the kids from you at first?
Yes.
Right. So this is why the bills that I made were done, because it makes it worse if you let the behavior keep going. So if this law was enacted in your state that she got a $500 fine for interference with your child custody, where you're at right now probably would never have happened. Do you think?
Okay, and I get where you're going, and I appreciate what you're doing, and I understand it. You are looking at the long game. What I'm looking at is the children.
I'm looking at before it starts.
I'm looking at right now the short game of the children being abused right now.
Correct. And that's why you figure out where it starts. Like my children, it was too late, but I can back it up to figure out to where it started and stop it from getting to where you're at or anyone else in this Zoom, or even where mine was. So that's where you need to back up legislation to, is to stop it before it starts.
I agree with that. But at the same time, when you realize, okay, I'm not seeing my kids, there should be no blockage, no blockade when you go to report suspected child abuse and they refuse to do it.
I agree. I agree with you. I agree. I mean, other than I tell you that they're not following the rules, again, that's why Jennifer Lundy did Texans for Judicial Accountability, to start holding judges accountable. So I would just say follow that pattern and put it in your state the same way Jennifer's doing. And Jennifer will repeat that process in your state too. So if anybody wants to start, Georgians for Texas for judicial accountability, or Virginians for for, judicial accountability and go the steps that she's doing, even better. That way these judges know that they are going to be held accountable and there's no more games to be played. And the only reason that all of y'all are here is because if judges were more fair, then it wouldn't be what this is now.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that breeded all of us.
Totally. And you are aware of Title IV D&E, right?
I am.
Okay, because I actually contacted, I'm going to hold up by the way, Marianne, thank you very much. I really appreciate you and putting me in the book.
Thank you.
But I wrote this small one, which I probably should put a better name on it, which is How Would You Like to Die? After I spoke to Sarah Molesky, who told me that $200 million comes in from Title IV D&E into North Carolina, just North Carolina. I know there's $77 billion that comes in to all the states, but then I asked Patrick Kinlaw, the director of the Judicial Retirement Fund, and 88% of that money goes into the retirement of all judges. How can that be fair in any stretch of any imagination?
I get
that
it.
question goes out to you, Rob.
I agree. I think there's a lot of corruption, but you need to figure out where it starts, stop it before it starts, even with these, and re-educate the judges and stuff, because they learn from the attorneys. That's why, they have to state the law, where their arguments came from. They stretch what they actually read. They leave parts out. It's widespread. And so until you can, and I said this several months ago, is until we can get in and start training the judges and lawyers, this is going to continue to happen. And guess what happened? How some miraculous movement of God ended up being able to train these lawyers and judges.
But are they following what you said them? I mean, just training them.
Yes.
I mean,
And
there are
in
laws
fact,
on the books that they don't follow. What
yeah,
training is going to help?
Listen, it's not going to do anything, but at least I just spoke to 200 people at once. How long will it take you to speak to 200 lawyers and judges and get it?
Yeah, a while.
Right. So what am I doing? It may be a little bit of movement, but at least it's movement. It's a little bit of ripple effect. What I said will hopefully ripple into all their judgments and your cases and everything else. So I want to introduce you to my daughter, Lonnie. She's sitting here listening to you.
Oh, she's beautiful.
Hi, Lonnie.
Hello.
Yep.
She's
So,
stunning.
but she knows all about this stuff. So there's nothing that she hasn't heard. So anyway. But yeah, so I feel where you are coming from, but at some point we have to just amend these laws and do it for the betterment of not only, if we can't do anything about our own cases, at least our grandchildren will not have to go through what we're going through and everyone else. So.
But do you really think that the judges need training? I think a lot of these judges are doing this on purpose.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like a money industry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for example, my judge, she was Lisa. She was the judge of Lorena Bobbitt. She became very.
Oh, sorry.
She knows all about abuse, and now she's re-victimizing all these parents who are being abused.
So
what I have to agree. I'm sorry, didn't mean to be rude. I have to agree. Met every judge I encountered and everyone I know who's encountered stuff, these judges knew, they did it on purpose. Here's extra proof. I've had judges who were not even assigned to my case, and they came in and hijacked the case when they had no subject matter jurisdiction. Why? They didn't have enough work? You mean they were sitting around lonely and bored? They said, gee, I want some more work, so I'm going to go grab that case. No, they knew what they were doing. I had an assigned judge. So I'm not saying every single judge. I'm saying my experience where at my courthouse, these judges knew what they were doing. It was all about the money train. Sorry to interrupt.
I agree to a lot of it, but they only learn from each other. They only learn whatever. These are very inexperienced. If you have a criminal judge come into a family law court, They don't know what's going on. It's going to take them years to even figure out, and they only leave it up to the other judges to help them or the attorneys. And everyone's learning dirty games from each other, so they think they're doing the right thing. That's what I'm telling you. There has to be a reset, and I don't know how to do that yet. But I promise you, I'm going to figure it out. And when that happens, they're not going to like it, but I promise you there will be a reset to this at some point.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I have that
what-
reset.
And Robert, who is Jennifer?
I don't want to hear it. Huh?
No, you don't.
Robert,
You know,
who is Jennifer? You were talking about
Yeah, Jennifer Lundy. You can look her up on my page. Or look up Texans for Judicial Accountability.
She's been on my podcast a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
she's
if I can-
amazing.
If I can say something, listening, you know, I think what we're talking about here makes protecting children actually more difficult, because the will of the courts, we're the #1 country in the world for child sex trafficking. The will of the courts is to sex traffic children. So now we're proposing to make it even more difficult for safe, protective parents to protect their children, and we're going to fine them $500 and charge them with felonies as they're trying to protect children, because the will of the courts is to sex traffic children. We're the #1
Perfect.
country in the world.
I'm glad you
So
brought that
now-
up.
So now, the one thing I absolutely agree with you, however, is to reduce the immunity of judges and start holding them accountable when they do sex traffic children. And I'll tell you one of the funny things about my RICO case. They did sex traffic my children because my kids disclosed sex abuse. And they sent my children to the custody of their alleged violent sexual perpetrator, who now has 8 CPS indications from Erie and Niagara County, and they still won't take my children out of his custody. And I have 0 CPS indications. So,
Okay. So he's already been charged with stuff, or
No,
or
he's-
they found reason to believe? No.
so they always left the sex abuse alone. Like, my daughter was repeatedly running away, needing police to find her and secure her. And then they always put her back into the abusive home. But she reported being strangulated. Her brother told police or CPS that he saw it happen. The things they got him on are inadequate guardianship, educational neglect, medical neglect, but they never indicated him for the sexual abuse, even though the kids disclosed it. So, oh, he did all these things, but he didn't do that. No, it goes together. It's the whole picture.
So you withheld the kids, right? At some point.
But no, I didn't. Remember, he used to work for CPS. So
Right.
there's a lot of inner
Okay.
dealings going on where
I can tell you if he
cronyism,
worked.
pulling favors for each other, things that
I can
I
tell
was up
you if-
against because he's an attorney as well.
Yeah.
But one of
well,
the funny things are ironic, not haha, but ironic. So I don't get many people that
go ahead.
disbelieve me, because once I say my ex worked for CPS, you know. But one of the things I wanted to tell you, though, when I took control of my case pro se, and I found out what was happening with my court docket, Trump just got in all this trouble and for malfeasance with business records. Well, in my case, the judges and the clerks obstructed more than 34 filed documents from my official court record in a manner to control the narrative, obstruct any competing narrative to traffic my children to their violent abuser. So now
There is no
because-
laws that anyone can create to stop that, especially since
Right.
they already.
I agree.
I mean, your deck was stacked. CPS history of him working for them or knowing them, and also an attorney. I mean,
I found his $500 bribe to a senator even.
Yeah, see, I mean, there's no amount. If somebody wants to play dirty, then there's no amount of laws that you can write for someone to act right. There's not. This $500 fine would not even stop my ex. It won't. I can tell you right now.
But my point is that these are going to be more layers, because they're really going to use it not towards they're not going to use it towards the sincere parents. They're going to use it to harm they're going to use it to harm people who are trying to protect their kids. We're the #1 country in the world. We don't get that title because we made some mistakes. It's not judicial ignorance, it's willful. You don't get to be number one in the world by accident.
Mhm.
I agree with you, but I don't have an answer or how to fix that. And if you do,
Well,
definitely take it to
I
your
mean-
legislator.
I mean, I definitely agree though. Reducing the count, reducing the immunity is helpful because remember, they're saying Trump has absolute immunity, right? Judges claim they have absolute immunity. But if Trump can be held accountable and convicted on 34 felonies, all their malfeasance with official government records that they obstructed that were filed to the record that they obstructed from the record. And I can prove that they did it because I made a complaint. They actually did put the documents, they did file them, but some of them were as old as 10 years old when they finally put them to the record, but obstructed because they did get put in after my complaint. I mean, some things are still missing, like all the documents admitted for evidence are still missing, but
I think everyone in this Zoom has been harmed by the court system in some way. The thing is, you're not going to be able to fix everything, but you can fix, if every one of us fix something every session, no matter what that is and how you were harmed, if you can back it up to where it started, don't worry about fixing it after the effects of whatever happened, but try to back it up as far back as you can and fix where the starting point was. That way, not only you, but this won't start for others either. And you can't fix crazy. There is nothing that someone's going to fix at family court because you can file if you don't like what you got. Until that's changed, then it's never going to stop. But at least you can implement to take away the discretion of the people that aren't doing it now. Just like right now, the DA's not prosecuting for perjury or for interference with child custody. I'm taking it back and I'm dialing it back to give it into the hands of the police officers that can write a $500 fine to stop it before it starts. And I don't want them to give them $500 fine. I don't. But the threat of a belt, when you tell a kid that's sitting right there and let's just say they're playing with dirt and you're saying, hey, if you play with that, I'm going to spank you and put the belt on the table, they're going to stop that every time they look at that belt. So when they know that police officer is coming out there, they're going to hopefully, now you're not going to stop the crazy kids that are very, they're like, oh, you mean this dirt? That's some of our exes. I get it. But for the most part, the threat of the belt will stop a lot of this before it starts.
Okay, but let me ask you a question, Rob. If you can't get a sheriff to write a report for child abuse, why do you think they're going to go after that $500 fine?
Because it goes in their pocket. Because it goes to their municipality. Are you kidding me?
Okay, that I'll give you.
I mean, I just incentivize them to do the right thing. And I took it out of the hands and it happens immediately. So I get it. But you know what? If someone was harming my kid, $500, I'm like, screw you, get out of here. Until I can, and how many $500 fines can you get? Like that will give you enough time. If somebody ever has first, third, and fifth weekends, that literally gives you 3 weeks to hijack that kid, to get him to a therapist, to get him to
can't that be more of an
yes, or
incentive
whatever.
Can't there be more of an incentive to sex traffic children and act in its own way like Title IV federal funding? So it's more money into the system to traffic children.
I don't know enough about, I believe you, but I don't know enough about the subject to figure out a way. And the only reason that and God help me if that ever happens, because I would go nuts if my kids were sex trafficked. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But if the only way that I've been able to do this is because it's happened to me. And once it happens to me, I figure out a way for it not to happen to anyone else. I don't want my kids to be sex trafficked. I have 3 more years. Hopefully they're never sex trafficked. But I do feel for the kids that are sex trafficked. And I guarantee you, after this is done, if I had more time to dedicate to what y'all's issues are and you could explain them to me, and then I can take that in and figure it out and regurgitate it to a legislator or something, I would love to have that type of time. But right now, my kids have 3 more years. And with them and my ex fighting me for the next 3 years in court and trying to legislate the stuff that I'm doing and popping into these Zooms and educating judges and lawyers, you'd be surprised how much little time I have. I was at the airport literally an hour ago, jumping on an airplane to go. If Jeff Younger if they were going to throw him in jail this morning, I was going to be there to bail him out. I didn't know, he didn't know either that they had put, they knew he knew he was going to court, but they didn't know they put this in the pleadings. They just did it this morning, and I was at the airport when he had contacted me, and he just got out, and they delayed it to another date. Thank goodness. So I got my refund and walked out of the airport. But there's a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes that you have no idea that what's being played. And I mean, if you want to teach me about whatever you're going through, if you think I can solve your issue, I'll be more than happy to listen. But I can't do it for you, but I can tell you what to amend, what to fit in there. But I can't go knock on your legislator's door because they won't listen to me. I tried it Eric, Carol, and I tried it in 43 states. They listened to us because their constituents showed up. But after we left, that was it. It was done. Like that literally did nothing.
Can we move on from this topic?
Huh?
Marianne, can we move on from this topic?
Okay, sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, Alisha, you're up next. And then
Great.
so
Does somebody else want to wrap up?
Oh, well, you're the last one to talk, so I thought I'd let you talk.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Natalia.
Can I say one thing before you go, honey?
Okay.
Yes, please.
I just want to say I'm now in the federal court because I got so tired of the state courts for the last 8 or 9 years, and between child support and custody, as everything has gone wrong in my life. It's gotten worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm in federal, and one of the questions I'm asking in federal is that I will never get a fair and just trial in any state or county court in Virginia. I don't know how it's going to go, and I even said that the Virginia is unconstitutional. So I'll just have to see how my case goes. I'll let everybody know.
I'll have you on a podcast. Aw.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I have Alisha Clark. She is also in my book as a contributor. Thank you so much, Alisha. And I'm glad for your contribution.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be in the new book. Yay. And excited to be in it. And I'm chapter 10 for all those that are out there. And
yeah,
I've definitely taken a 180. Chapter 10, yeah.
In both books.
I've definitely taken in both books, that's right. And hopefully I'll be in your third. When's that coming out?
Probably next year.
Yeah.
I need a break. I need a break and some more of this.
So I went definitely a different direction than everybody on the Zoom right now. I went sovereign. So I opted out of US citizenship, and you can opt out of all your court cases. And that's what I think is the root of the problem. You could opt out of all this. The only word I can think of right now is, judicial fuckery in IRS Form 56, Section 3. The way that I feel about things is that the judicial system and the legislator, they're all one EIN. They're all just a corporation. United States government is a corporation. So they're not going to force any rules. They're not going to force any fines. They're not going to force their own laws. They do what they want when they want, because it's like Pepsi Cola running and making decisions for your kids. There's no accountability, not in New York. There's zero accountability in New York. And there's a lot of no accountability in the system. So I've opted myself out of all of this judicial nonsense, and there's no laws you're going to pass, or there's no amount of media or anything. It's absolutely immunity, and that's kind of where I'm at with things. And so I'm doing things in UCC codes and claims more than begging for mercy on a judge to do anything right ever. Has been my experience, and it's been my experience with most parents. So that's kind of where I'm at with everything.
Do you
Did
have
that
your
work
kids?
for you?
I'm not even allowed to speak to my children, and I have zero mental health issues. I've passed every drug test in front of me. I was a very successful business owner, and my ex is a registered sex offender running a brothel out of the home. And the attorney for the child physically assaulted me on trial. The attorney for the trial physically assaulted me. It's on the record. And he's still the attorney for the child for the case. So
Right.
there's no amount of fines or complaints or anything that will ever pierce through that immunity that
Right. And
the corporation has.
you were on the witness stand when you were assaulted.
Yes, by the attorney for the child. Yes.
You can't make this up.
So
So, and now you're not seeing your
can't make it.
children for how long?
It's been about 3 years. I'm not even allowed to call them without threats of arrest. And I've had 9 contempts for speaking out and against the judge and their sex trafficking and their favoritism towards BDSM and their infractions. And so the judge ordered me 2 years of jail time for that, for contempt, financial contempt so just making things up, so they're actively trying to put me in jail right now. And I'm not even allowed to talk to my children.
So if you're a sovereign citizen, then they can't even arrest you, right?
Well, they could try, but they would have to put me in their jurisdiction, right? So, police and judges can do literally whatever they want here in New York. They can come and grab me and put me in jail forever. A judge in New York can order someone to mow their lawn, and if they don't comply, then they can put you in jail. So
Would you suggest to other parents be sovereign?
Heck yeah. So that's the root of the problem. Don't even mess with this, craziness. And you can put your children in a private trust. You can put your children in a foreign trust, and you can make your own children sovereign through UCC codes, and completely break away from this, clown show that is the New York judicial system. So, I've been a lobbyist in New York for over 15 years on different, various nonprofits, and so I know how the legislature works, and it's all one big corporation. So it's Pepsi Cola running the judicial courts. It's absolute immunity. They can do whatever they want. They can physically assault parents in New York. They can get away almost with murder, and they do it all the time, all the complaints, and there's no relief because the corporation is going to protect its own, right?
But your fix is be sovereign, but you still don't have your kids. I could see if your fix was that, and you can say, look, I have full custody, or I go over there anytime I want. They can't arrest me because I'm sovereign, but that's not working.
It's not working because I put myself into the system. Right. So all the, and who's going to hold anybody accountable? Nobody. Right.
So what you're saying is that if you became sovereign before you got into the system, that would have saved you from all the bullshit you had.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If I never stepped foot or had any fantasies that the judicial system was somewhat fair, and my ex is a registered sex offender running a brothel, and this is all over his website, running a brothel out of his home, and I have no criminal background, no mental. It's like, okay, and it's the same thing as Stacey and everybody else. Extremely abusive man, abusive to the children, sex trafficking. My children are right up on the BDSM sites. Send it to CPS, send it to the local sheriffs. Nobody gives a rat's ass.
Wouldn't it be the same as signing your rights away?
No, you actually gain more rights as a non-US citizen because you're getting yourself out of their, regulations. So you actually gain under the 14th Amendment more constitutional rights. And, I just became sovereign this year, trying to unwind of, 5 years of, judicial clown show.
I'm just wondering,
So
so
you
when
actually
you
gain more
become,
rights as a non-US citizen.
so when you become fully sovereign, I'm just trying to figure out why you're doing it, because in the end, are you going to be able to go get your kids?
I can probably go get my kids right now and to take off if I wanted to, but I'm trying not to, try not to do that. The sheriff, they won't do anything, clearly. So, it's about risk. It's about learning your rights and fighting through claims and UCC codes and getting them to be accountable as a state national is technically is the terminology, not sovereign citizen.
Okay, I don't know
So you
enough about
gain
this.
more rights
I'm
because
trying
the
to.
14th Amendment, yeah, the 14th Amendment puts you under U.S. citizenship under this corporation. The United States government is a corporation, is an EIN, no different than Tesla. So and
I get it.
so there's actually more rights as a state national, and it's about knowing your rights under the Constitution and not stepping into their jurisdiction. So once you step into that courtroom, you say, "I'm a U.S. citizen," your strong name, your name that is in all caps, right? So you're stepping into their jurisdiction. You're begging for mercy from these evil people.
Okay.
So Marianne, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being in the book. I
looking forward to-
appreciate it. Yeah, keep me posted on everything. Everybody keep me posted. And thank you all for coming on to Slam the Gavel Happy Hour. And
Thanks for having.
yeah, and does anyone want to give out their contact information if anyone has any questions?
Yeah, I will. A Walker Wedding Group is my website. I'm Alisha Clark on Facebook, and that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is it okay if I encourage something? For anybody who believes that their children are being abused, take your camera or your phone. I know my video's late, but take your camera and your phone and a couple of friends and go to the magistrate's office or go to the sheriff's office and videotape them refusing the right report against the judge, against the opposing lawyers, and then put that up on YouTube. The more people that see that these guys, the people that are supposed to protect our kids and are supposed to and mandated by every state's law to report child abuse, that don't care about everybody's rights or the statutes or the laws in their state, it shows that they are willing and they are part of this child abuse scheme. So would you, if you believe that this is the case, please do that. Go ahead.
So in my state, my son was choked by his father. And so I went to the magistrate. They gave the protective order. The child came with me. Within 24 hours, he was released back to his dad. And then withdrawed him from the school. But when I went to court, and then he homeschooled Ethan for 3 years so that he wouldn't report the abuse, which is horrible. Anyway, so I went to court in the trial, and the judge said, I don't want to hear what the magistrate has to say. I don't want to hear from CPS. I don't want to hear from anybody in this courtroom about abuse, or get out of my courtroom. So even though there are people there that would have spoke up about the abuse, we have a judge on the stand that says, I don't want to hear about abuse in my courtroom. So there went all my evidence.
I understand that, but if you went and videotaped your report to the magistrate or to the sheriff's department or to Child Protective Services, then about that judge, then you can go into that next courtroom and say, Your Honor, I filed child abuse charges against you. I would like you to recuse yourself from my case.
How can people reach you, Ken?
My email is gallery, GALLERY, MI1 Feel free to give me an email. I'll try and respond. Trying not to give out my phone number anymore because I get calls at 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning asking me to help out right now.
Yeah.
The biggest help you can do for yourself, get 2, get 3, get 4 of your friends, 4 of your family members that know who you are, and go to the magistrate, go to the sheriff, and videotape the charges that you are trying to accuse or you suspect that your child is being psychologically abused by orders of the judge, and that the opposing counsel is also in on this. Because the moment you can show that and send that tape to whatever state's judicial standards commission that shows that you are trying to file child abuse cases, it'll make your case stronger, and it'll be stronger for all of us. Right now, I have 900 judges accused of child abuse, and I've sent it to Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI. I've spoke to half a dozen FBI agents. I've spoke to SBI. I've spoke to attorney generals, and no one will stick their toe into it. It's going to take an uprise at like Floyd, who got killed because he was on tape. So nobody trusts the police at this point. So let's put this out there so no one trusts the judiciary in America, because it's all corrupt.
Mhm.
That's all I have to say.
But for all of us parents who don't have access to our kids, it's going to be hard to prove it after 3 years.
Right. Stacey,
Why?
how can people reach you if they have any questions?
Hi, Marianne. So a couple things. First, I wanted people to be able to look up my RICO lawsuit, and that's in the New York Western District. So anyone that has access to PACER, the case number is 24CV508. And my Article 78 to remove several New York State police officers from their position for conspiracy for criminal cover-up of a drug driving cop who hit a disabled person. That's in Genesee County Supreme Court. And I just filed it, so I don't remember the case number, but it's Stacey Sunletter versus Ronald Wilson and others in the New York State Genesee County Supreme Court. And people can find me on my Facebook groups. I have Be Loud Erie Niagara, which is sort of geographically restricted to where I live. And then I have When the New York State Courts Obstruct More Than 34 Documents from Your Official Court Record as a Facebook group, and Be Loud for Children. So people can contact me through there.
Thank you so much, Robert. How can people reach you if they have any questions?
Facebook. And I would say if you want to befriend me, you can follow me or befriend me. But if you do it pretty quick after we get off, because I get inundated with like stuff all the time. And so I'll check it here in the next 10 minutes if you're not already friends. And I sent a couple of y'all already friends because I was looking at your names and typing them in. So to Stacey, I'm so sorry you're going through this, and everyone that's going through this. I mean, that's kind of what they do, is they run you ragged, that you're not just fighting for your kids, you're fighting the court system, the amicus, the psych eval, the home study, the cops, it's crazy amount of, I mean, it's a gang war against you. So I'm sorry you're going through that, and just keep up the good fight and turn your pain into purpose.
Thank you so much. And Elaine Hickman, how can people reach
Hi.
you?
Hi, I'm on Facebook, but I don't really use it that often unless someone tells me to go. My email is it's Laney5@Yahoo. That's LAINEYFIVE@yahoo.com.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And Tracy, do you want them to come through me to get to you? Okay. All right. Okay. And Kathy Watrel, do you want them to come through me to get to you?
No, people can reach out to me via Facebook, or my email is kwatrel@gmail.com.
Thank you so very much. And I thank you all for coming. And enjoying this happy hour with us. And thank you for your contributions for this book. And Slam the Gavel's a podcast, help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, other platforms I don't know about. Thank you so very, very much, everyone, for contributing to this best-selling book. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Congratulations.
Marianne.
Good hearing.